Okay, well, welcome for those that are here or going to be watching later on. Um, this is for most of you, your students are already, sorry, not students, they're my students. Your child is in my dyslexia class, and I wanted to go ahead and go over, they've already qualified for dyslexia, they're already receiving services, but I wanted to go over as well, what is dyslexia on here. So we're going to go ahead and begin dyslexia and the related disorders. Just an informational seminar for parents. Welcome. So we're just talking about what is dyslexia basically. So first of all, we want to go into what is reading. It's a complex process of making meaning from print. So we've got that word recognition of can they identify or figure out the decoding words? And then from there, then we also want the comprehension. They're making the meaning from them. So when you combine that word recognition and that comprehension, then we're getting that fluency as well, where you're coordinating those two steps to make the reading part. And then we want to know also, what is dyslexia? Dyslexia is a specific learning disability. Okay, it's specific because your child is having difficulties when it comes to print. Sorry, let me move real quick.
He gave the wrong order. If you could bring your order back to the front entrance, please, Ms. Ortega. Please bring your food order back to the front. Thank you.
All right, sorry about that announcement there. So on a specific learning ability, they're having difficulties with print. So we have here difficulty recognizing words, which could possibly affect their reading comprehension. They have trouble decoding words, trying to blend those sounds, those letters with sounds. They're slow in accurate oral reading. They have spelling issues, and they have phonological struggles. Because they might not be able to identify the letters and the sounds or manipulate and put those together in there. So that is what dyslexia is. So also, what else? It's neurobiological. It often runs in the family. Sometimes it doesn't, sometimes it does. We're always looking for clusters of traits, and they can differ in degree of impact. Some are slight, not having that many issues, and some are more severe. The common risk factors associated with dyslexia is that, I need to move this just a little bit. They have difficulties with oral language and difficulty with reading. So we'll just kind of glance a little bit over. But on the oral language, sometimes, and just see if this you can associate with this with your child, is did they have delay in learning to talk, or they were persistent doing baby talk? They had difficulty rhyming. Trouble pronouncing words or recalling the right word when speaking, problems with learning the alphabet, the letter names and the corresponding sounds that I was mentioning earlier, and issues with identifying and manipulating those individual sounds. And then with the part with the reading is that they're guessing at the words and they're relying a lot on the pictures. They have trouble with recognizing just common sight words. They struggle with recalling the correct sounds for the letters and letter patterns. They have fluency difficulty about reading slow and trying to comprehend what they're reading, and difficulty applying phonics to figure out unfamiliar words. And that's what we work on in class a lot. Also, other common risk factors, they have difficulty with spelling, trouble remembering the sounds of those letters or the letter patterns. They may omit letters in words. There's an example, after is spelled efter. They may do well on weekly spelling tests. You study really hard and they've got it. And then all of a sudden the next week they've forgotten. They make those daily errors. They consistently misspell common irregular words that we work hard on, that they know that this is the way it's spelled because it cannot be pronounced and spelled out that way. They find homophones very confusing, there, and there. So we go over that as well. And they may reverse, transpose, or rotate letters. And this conflicts also with writing. They may substitute less sophisticated words. Instead of saying, enormous, they'll just say big because it's easier to spell. Have problems with completing written assignments, especially longer ones. And this is why we give them on those type of accommodations for extra time. They may have good ideas, but struggle to write them in an organized way, make errors copying from the board, and displaying poor or illegible handwriting. That's sometimes, not always. What else might we also see? They have a tendency to avoid reading. Now, in the class now, we're doing a lot of reading, so they're enjoying that. So that's what we're wanting to get, that pleasure. Resistance to read aloud, the reliance on listening rather than reading for comprehension. They get frustrated with the amount of time it takes and the energy expended. Difficulty with volume of reading and written work. Trouble with note taking. They prefer to answer orally than to do the written response. They struggle to finish tests on time, so we usually give them extra time when it comes to test. And their self-esteem is deflated, that they seem to lack of that motivation. There is positives for with the dyslexias. They do have there is positives on here. Their only problem is the unexpected, is the decoding. They have great vocabulary, problem solving. They're very creative, good comprehension, and so forth. If you can see on these, this is the positives, and they just have this issue. That is the unexpected difficulty. We have this video here I wanted to show. It's very short. I'm going to go ahead and put that to play.
Take a moment to read the following. How was that? Frustrating? Slow? What were those sentences about? They're actually a simulation of the experience of dyslexia, designed to make you decode each word. Those with dyslexia experience that laborious pace every time they read. When most people think of dyslexia, they think of seeing letters and words backwards, like seeing B as D and vice versa. Or they might think people with dyslexia see saw as was. The truth is, people with dyslexia see things the same way as everyone else. Dyslexia is caused by a phonological processing problem, meaning people affected by it have trouble not with seeing language, but with manipulating it. For example, if you heard the word cat and then someone asked you, remove the C, what word would you have left? At. This can be difficult for those with dyslexia. Given a word in isolation like fantastic, students with dyslexia need to break the word into parts to read it. Fan-tas-tic. Time spent decoding makes it hard to keep up with peers and gain sufficient comprehension. Spelling words phonetically like S-T-I-K for stick and F-R-E-N-S for friends is also common. These difficulties are more widespread and varied than commonly imagined. Dyslexia affects up to 1 in 5 people. It occurs on a continuum. One person might have mild dyslexia, while the next person has a profound case of it. Dyslexia also runs in families. It's common to see one family member who has trouble spelling, while another family member has severe difficulty decoding even one-syllable words like catch. The continuum and distribution of dyslexia suggest a broader principle to bear in mind as we look at how the brains of those with dyslexia process language. Neurodiversity is the idea that because all our brains show differences in structure and function, we shouldn't be so quick to label every deviation from the norm as a pathological disorder, or dismiss people living with these variations as defective. People with neurobiological variations like dyslexia, including such creative and inventive individuals as Picasso, Muhammad Ali, Whoopi Goldberg, Steven Spielberg, and Cher, clearly have every capacity to be brilliant and successful in life. So here's the special way the brains of those with dyslexia work. The brain is divided into 2 hemispheres. The left hemisphere is generally in charge of language and ultimately reading, while the right typically handles spatial activities. fMRI studies have found that the brains of those with dyslexia rely more on the right hemisphere and frontal lobe than the brains of those without it. This means when they read a word, it takes a longer trip through their brain and can get delayed in the frontal lobe. Because of this neurobiological glitch, they read with more difficulty. But those with dyslexia can physically change their brain and improve their reading. With an intensive multisensory intervention, that breaks the language down and teaches the reader to decode based on syllable types and spelling rules, the brains of those with dyslexia begin using the left hemisphere more efficiently while reading, and their reading improves. The intervention works because it locates dyslexia appropriately as a functional variation in the brain, which naturally shows all sorts of variations from one person to another. Neurodiversity emphasizes this spectrum of brain function in all humans and suggests that to better understand the perspectives of those around us, we should try to not only see the world through their eyes, but understand it through their brains.
So I really like that because it's really starting to talk about why does it take so long and what they go through. So it was good just to kind of see that. Here about the signs of dyslexia instructions, the what. What we really focus on is the phonological awareness, the sound symbol association, the syllabication is knowing the 6 basic types of English and syllable divisions. That's very important. Besides, knowing and identifying the letters and sounds. The orthography is the written spelling patterns, the morphology, studying of the structure and form of words in a language, the syntax, knowing the rules and the patterns when writing, the reading comprehension, understanding what you're reading, and the reading fluency, being able to appropriately read at a current rate and accuracy and proper expression. The main focus that we do in my class is working with those alphabet skills, recognizing the sequencing, alphabetizing, and the accenting. We also do the phonemic awareness, where it's the sensitivity of the sounds. And if you notice here, I actually have these sound pictures back here, and we're really focused on what our mouth is displaying and what the sound is, so that they have that, so that they can identify and be able to write those letters. And then we're doing those decoding with those sound pictures. We do the spelling, the fluency, and the comprehension skills. And this is just an example here on the handwriting. We do cursive because it's an even flow. They do the top portion is done, then they do the last 2 there on their own. But this is an easy flow, and they're not having to lift up their hands and their pencil on there. Then we also work on the instant words. So we're using flashcards. Then we use columns and phrases and rows. So they say it in a variety of ways, and they're having to know those words, and we practice them consistently. So it's not where they have to rely on decoding, they just know it. So that helps with their reading as well. And then what I want to go ahead and start is a reading log. Because the more they read, the better the vocabulary, the better they see those words, and they know more as well. So I want to start on those reading logs soon to send, if you can help on that. I wanted to display the thoughts on accommodations here. The individualized is the impact of dyslexia will vary with each student. So there's no one way of giving accommodations because everybody is different. Also, if with the 504, majority of them are in 504, they're not in the special ed with the ARD, but we do a committee and we determine what type of accommodations they do need, should they be involved in any of these instructional accommodations or the STAR. So examples is like instructional is note-taking assistance for those that have trouble writing and keeping up, alternative test locations to reduce distractions. They might not be in the classroom, they might be in a smaller group during the testing, word banks, audio books, formula charts, alpha or adaptive learning tools and features in software programs. We also have audio books as well. And then there's these other parts on here that I will share with y'all later. Oops. And then where can I learn more? Also, we have the Dyslexia Handbook, which is shared here, and some other information under the Understood org, the Dyslexia IDA, and the Yale one. And these are also sites on the audiobooks. And then here's some more about behind every child who believes in himself is a parent who believes first. A lot of great resources. And I will put this in the remind as well for you and share this in the YouTube under for dyslexia. I will share that in the remind section. And there's some of just more of the references here, and also my information. And then one of our itinerant dyslexia specialists, well, two of them here, and then our section 504 coordinator. So that's all that I have on the presentation, but I wanted to just, like I said, I wanted to give you more in-depth information about the dyslexia. There's going to be more links in there for you. And then just to kind of display and show what we were doing. We also here, we also do this little thing here is how we write a sentence where we begin with a capital letter, end with a punctuation mark, have a subject and a predicate, and form a complete thought. We pause at commas, stop at periods, change the pitch of our voice when we need a question mark and an exclamation point. So we say this every time so that the students, it gets embedded that they know when they're writing a sentence that this is the steps that they need to do. So everything we do is very intensive, strategic on here. So I really appreciate you coming and attending. And I will be sending a sign-in sheet for later on if you'll sign for me. Does anybody have any questions? All right, well, I appreciate it. And if you do have any questions, you have my remind on there, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.